Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the mind-bending intersection of quantum mechanics and living biology. It's this incredibly wild space where the strict, pristine rules of fundamental physics completely collide with the messy, complex world of organic life. So here's the massive question we're tackling today. Is life actually quantum? Does nature use quantum mechanics to function, or is this all just a bunch of science fiction hype? Now, obviously, quantum mechanics is the absolute bedrock of basic chemistry, which means it's the bedrock for all biology at the molecular scale. But the stricter, much more fascinating question is whether particular quantum resources, things like tunneling, coherence, or entanglement, are actually necessary to explain what we observe in biology under realistic living conditions. Basically, are living systems actively exploiting quantum effects just to survive? Okay, to navigate all of this without getting completely lost, we're going to use an evidence ladder. This helps us clearly separate the hard facts from the, highly speculative fiction. At the very top, we've got firmly established facts with obvious biological relevance. And as we descend the rungs, we move down through plausible but unresolved cases, all the way down to those really speculative ideas that haven't quite been separated from classical explanations yet. This ladder is absolutely crucial for keeping us rigorously grounded as we dig into the science. To keep things from getting too overwhelming, we've split this whole frontier into 4 main areas. We're going to look at quantum in biology, quantum for biology, biology for quantum, and finally wrap it up with the road ahead. Right, let's kick things off with Section 1, Quantum in Biology. Essentially, does a quantum mechanism actually affect biological function? Now, we really have to draw a hard line here. There is a huge difference between biology inherently acting quantum and us just using engineered quantum tools to look at biology. Quantum in biology means a specific quantum mechanism, like electron tunneling or spin-dependent dynamics, is absolutely required to explain how a biological process works. A purely classical description would just completely mischaracterize it. We're talking about the fundamental invisible mechanisms driving life itself. And man, the sheer diversity of these claims is absolutely staggering. We're looking at everything from proton tunneling, potentially causing mutations in our DNA, all the way to how our eyes process light through retinal photoisomerization and even excitotonic dynamics inside photosynthesis. It covers the whole shebang. So if we apply our evidence ladder to this landscape, things separate out pretty clearly by how much proof we actually have. Enzymatic hydrogen tunneling, that sits firmly at the established top. We can literally see clear kinetic isotope effects proving that hydrogen atoms are tunneling right through activation barriers and enzymes. Moving down a bit, bird magnetoreception via radical pair spin dynamics, that's physically plausible, and the experiments are super suggestive, but it's still unresolved because we just aren't entirely sure of the exact radicals happening in a living bird. And finally, concepts like Posner clusters. This is the idea of protected nuclear spins in the brain, somehow enabling quantum entanglement for neural processing. That remains highly speculative, mainly because watery, aqueous environments in the brain usually cause rapid decoherence. But here's the catch, right? We have to be brutally scientific about this because a ton of what might look like a quantum signal can totally be explained away by classical biological confounds. Because remember, nature is messy, it's noisy, it's wet, it's warm. Trying to find a delicate quantum signal inside a living cell is literally like trying to hear whisper in a hurricane. A lot of what seems like quantum coherence in a carefully controlled lab setting can actually just be mimicked by classical thermal activation or vibrational wave packets. Plus, simply attributing a microscopic quantum event to a massive macro-level biological outcome in a living organism is incredibly difficult to nail down. So, what is the gold standard? It's all about the decisive test. Proving these wild theories requires isolating the exact quantum ingredient in a messy, real-world lab environment. We have to selectively alter that predicted quantum resource, maybe by disrupting a tunneling pathway or tweaking a magnetic spin. But here's the key. We have to do that while holding the classical chemistry and structure completely fixed. And then we have to link that tiny microscopic change directly to a measurable biological output. That is the hurdle everyone is trying to clear. Moving right along to part 2, quantum for biology. Basically, does a quantum tool improve our biological inference? This is where we shift gears to leverage engineered quantum tech to study living systems. We are talking about deploying cutting-edge tools to achieve unprecedented biological inference. Things like quantum simulation to model insanely complex biomolecular systems for drug discovery, quantum machine learning to sort through bioinformatics, and quantum-enhanced NMR and MRI that bypass traditional thermal limits to give us dramatically enhanced sensitivity. A perfect example of this is diamond quantum sensing. Scientists are literally taking microscopic flaws in diamonds, these are called nitrogen vacancy or NV centers, and turning them into hypersensitive ambient biosensors. By using these NV centers, we can detect tiny magnetic fields and temperature shifts at the micro and nanoscale resolution right inside biological samples and under normal ambient conditions. It is a massive game changer for our sensing capabilities. But, and this is a huge but, you can't just slap a quantum tool onto a biological problem and assume it's better. Classical baselines are constantly getting better too. To truly prove a quantum advantage, researchers must follow strict steps. You have to calibrate it under actual biological constraints, meaning dealing with heating, motion artifacts, sample toxicity, the works. Then, you absolutely must transparently benchmark it against the very best classical alternatives out there. And finally, you have to verify that the quantum tool actually provides a genuine, useful gain in biological inference. Okay, that brings us to Section 3, Biology for Quantum. Does biology actually improve quantum technology? This is where things take an incredible twist. Instead of just hunting for quantum effects inside biology, we are realizing that nature actually provides blueprints and scaffolds that solve engineering problems that our conventional fabrication techniques just cannot handle. Biological systems completely excel at self-assembly, genetic encodability, and operating in noisy environments, which, as you know, are massive hurdles for building current quantum computers. To give you a concrete idea of how this engineering actually works, just look at DNA. We are literally using the predictable, self-assembling nature of DNA origami to build modular quantum nanophotonic devices. Researchers can use this programmable self-assembly to achieve nanometer-scale placement of quantum emitters and plasmonic structures. We are quite literally using the building blocks of life to manufacture quantum hardware from the bottom up. No way, right? The major takeaway you should have here is that biology is actively laying the groundwork for scalable quantum computers. We actually have demonstrations now of genetically encoded fluorescent protein qubits. That means a biomolecule can host and protect a controllable quantum state in a messy ambient environment. We're even studying the architecture of photosynthesis to learn design rules for noise-robust transport, which shows us how high functional efficiency can totally coexist with disorder and environmental noise. Finally, we arrive at Section 4, the road ahead. Let's talk about multi-scale theory and rigorous benchmarks. As we wrap up our map, we have to synthesize everything we've talked about and really acknowledge the extreme rigor required moving forward. There is this strict 5-question discipline that the field absolutely must adopt to separate exciting science fiction from groundbreaking scientific fact. Anytime someone makes a strong claim, whether it's about a bird's eye, a new sensor, or a DNA scaffold, you've got to ask, what specific quantum resource is at play? What's the minimal mechanistic model? What is the strongest classical alternative? What is the discriminating test? And what is the actual biological or engineering output? Without this discipline, we totally risk getting lost in overhyped narratives. So armed with this navigational map, what do you think? Which mind-bending theory is going to climb that evidence ladder to become an established fact next? Will we definitively prove that birds really do use quantum entanglement to navigate the globe? Or actually, scratch that. Maybe we'll see a genetically encoded biological qubit revolutionize computing first. The intersection of quantum physics and living biology is, without a doubt, one of the most thrilling frontiers in modern science. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the quantum world around you.